Welcome to Licensed Poetics, a podcast where aspiring writers usually talk about books. I'm your host, Fung-Ling.
I'm Derek, and it's a special episode this week because we're not talking about books, as you may have noticed. We'll be talking about the far superior medium, television. Not even real television. It's like streaming services.
So you're not even like a streaming service elitist. You're a boomer TV format elitist.
That's exactly. But I mean, it's good.
We'll be talking about Severance. I'm sure you can tell from the thumbnail already. So as usual, in the first half of this episode, we'll keep it spoiler free. So if you haven't seen it, don't worry about it. And then we'll let you know when we jump into the spoiler section.
Yep. And you're going to hear us sell out even harder than before. We are just, whatever's popular, we're just going for it because no one cares about Milan Kundera.
Yeah, as I have unfortunately gathered from listening data and Instagram viewership data. But it's okay. That was a self-indulgent episode for me. Like, you gotta have one of those. I think in today's episode, it's a good instance where selling out also makes us happy because it's a good show. It's so popular right now. I think because the second season has just come out.
This is the bit where we normally ask, did you finish the show?
Did you finish the book?
Did you finish the book? Right? And of course we did, because it's a show, not a book. Very few people do not like DNF shows. That's not like a thing that you do.
What do you mean? Of course that is a thing. You just quit it. I think
it's way lower. I think it's way lower because the threshold for like consumption of television is so much lower than for books. Like, people will just leave it on the background and text or whatever.
Whenever I watch TV, I give the show 100% of my attention. And yes, I did finish Severance.
I guess before we get too ahead of ourselves, we should probably get into the synopsis.
Now that I'm reading it, I think I will put in a good word for Gemini's synopsis because it mentions a key concept that's going to help the listener. The innie and outie concept. So I think I'm going to read that one. It's not going to spoil it if you haven't seen the show yet. So Severance is a psychological thriller series where Lumen Industries, that's the name of the mega corporation, Lumen Industries employees undergo a severance procedure, splitting their work and personal memories. This creates distinct innie work personalities and outie personal lives. Mark Scout, leading a team of severed employees, begins to question his reality when a new colleague's arrival and a former co-worker's warnings spark their curiosity. The show explores the unsettling implications of this memory division as the employees grapple with their fragmented identities and the mysterious nature of Lumen Industries. I'm sure the listeners will have got it by now.
So the next thing is a quick author bio.
Yep.
Showrunner Dan Erickson, born 1984, studied English, graduated from NYU with a master's in TV writing. And prior to Severance, his experience in writing has been in short film and something called Lip Sync Battle pre-show, which I know what Lip Sync Battle is. I think.
Yeah. I do too.
It's celebrities just lip syncing and doing performances without having to sing. I don't know what the pre-show. I guess he wrote for. I don't know what the pre-show is because I've never seen the actual show.
Okay, I don't know either.
But basically, Severance is his first real TV job. Funnily enough, despite the genre of the first show as showrunner being a psychological thriller and mystery, he actually planned to write for comedy. So he always envisioned himself as a half-hour comedy show writer. So. NBC shows people will be probably familiar with, Parks and Rec, The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, whatever your favorite flavor of that is. That's the kind of TV writing he was doing.
For context, listeners, this episode, Derek has written our notes and the skeleton that we're referring as we're, recording. And then he literally wrote down whatever your favorite flavor is.
Just adding a little bit of spice,
I love it. I love it.
Oh my
God. So he's the showrunner, you said?
Yeah, he's the showrunner. The director is Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
People know Ben Stiller. He's I know everyone, he's obviously famous for his acting, but I think he's actually done a fair bit of directing work.
Is he the director or the producer?
He directs on this as well. He's also the executive producer.
Okay. Because I remember it has 8 episodes, right? Is it 8 or
9? I think
9? Right. Some of the episodes were not directed by him. I'm pretty sure.
no, but I
Okay.
think he directed most of it or
Yeah.
a lot of it. To be fair, it's the same sort of deal.
Yeah, it's interesting how these modern TV shows work, right? I noticed for these 8 or 9 episode shows, it's almost never the same director for every episode. I wonder why that is.
Like, if they feel like the director's vision is not necessarily that important because it's a TV show. I mean, it's a TV show, right? So the writer is king usually.
Oh.
So yeah, Hollywood operates differently for television than it does for movies. Movies often, like, you have a screenwriter, they get attached to a project, but they've written the script, they talk to the director, and then they're out the door.
Cool. What's the next question?
The conception of the show, I just kind of want to talk about it because I watched an interview actually.
Oh, yeah? He has done his research.
You know me. Between the two of us, I'm the one who does the research. Basically, Dan Erickson talks about moving to LA in 2016 to try and break into the industry. And he ends up working at a door factory and like sitting in like a windowless basement office cataloging parts of doors.
Wow, that literally explains so much about the show. Should I explain?
Yeah, I mean,
it won't be a spoiler at all. So the reason is because Severance, the TV show, is really corporate satire or office satire. That's a huge part of it. And it's in a very sterile corporate work environment where just imagine cubicles, gross green carpets, and also the fluorescent, is that called fluorescent lights? And windowless. And all you do all day is to sit at your computer and then go through random numbers. And that's what you do all day, every day. And because their identities are split between innies and outies, all their innies spend their entire lives doing is sitting in that office and going through random numbers because they don't remember their outies' personal lives or rest at all. And so the fact that you said the showrunner worked in that windowless basement, that really explains a whole lot about Severance.
The detail that got me was he was cataloging door parts and not knowing what any of these parts was. That made so much sense.
Wow. Yes. Because in the show, the random numbers that they spend all day going through, they don't know what those numbers represent. And the way you sort through them is that you just somehow know which numbers are scary. Like, you'll see an array of numbers on your screen.
You feel it.
And then you're like, okay, this 2 and this 4 are scary. So let me just select them and drag them to this bin. Boom, they're gone. My job's done. I've removed the scary numbers. But then the employees themselves have no idea what the numbers are about. And I think this is where one of the most famous quotes from the show comes in, right? The work is mysterious and important. So these, I guess, bottom level employees have no idea what they're doing. They just have to believe that the work they're doing is mysterious and important. They're logging door parts. Oh my God.
Right?
It's very, it's like Kafka-esque almost.
I'll tell you what's Kafka. I mean, there are a lot of jobs that are Kafka-esque. Maybe your jobs haven't been, but oh man, I've had some Kafka-esque jobs.
You know what? I have worked in some interesting jobs before. I was gonna say receptionist, but that's not Kafkaesque at all, right?
Yeah. If you work in a big corporation or you work at like in the government, there are just gonna be jobs that are like, why does this job exist? And what am I doing here? And
yeah, that's right.
And yeah, so, I mean, Kafkaesque. I think jobs have only gotten more Kafkaesque since Kafka wrote, right? Like
100%. Yeah, it's the excessive division of labor, right? When you're like so far removed from the
product,
and from the impact, from the point of it all. Yeah,
because it's different. You're not looking at doors anymore. You're at a computer like clicking
Parts of doors,
on
exactly.
door parts and auditing like door parts. Can you imagine how awful that would be? I actually think because in Lumen it's in the basement as well, right? Like he
Yes.
really ripped it.
Yeah, the way they do it is that when you go down the elevator, that's where your outie transitions into the innie.
Yeah.
And which is genius, of course, because going to a lift into your workplace is such a standard corporate work environment experience. And it does feel like when you step in that elevator, you're becoming your work self.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. It's genius.
So yeah, I mean that's how he came up with the basic premise for the show. And my understanding is that at the time that he came up with it, it was originally more of a horror story.
Oh, not a comedy? I thought you said he wanted to be a comedy writer.
He wanted to be a comedy writer, but I guess he was just moved by his experience. So he talks about how one of the big differences in the pilot that he envisioned and the pilot that ended up being made. I mean, it's literally the first scene.
Okay. There.
So
which scene?
No, I think it's the first one, like the literal first thing you see.
When the new colleague wakes up on the table?
Yeah.
Nice.
So in that's the opening shot of the. I don't think you can spoil literally the first shot by definition, right? She wakes up on the table, and it's
Haley, that's her name.
A new colleague, who's just joined Lumen Industries. In the first draft that he did originally, it was Mark, who was the team leader, department chief, or whatever they call him, who wakes up on the table. And he's actually not, he doesn't just wake up on the table, he's born. Originally, it was conceived as like, I don't know if you remember Blade Runner 2049?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. So in Blade Runner, like they come from this weird like,
shoot?
Yeah, shoot.
Okay.
And they come out and like all like gross and like.
That's very Matrixy.
Yeah, like basically that. So it was like very visceral. So I think that added to the horror element of it. And then I think when what happened was that was how it was originally pitched, how it was originally designed. And so he pitched it to Sci-Fi Channel. So Sci-Fi Channel, for anyone who doesn't know, is this kind of shitty low budget channel that makes sci-fi short films and movies and the TV shows. Very low budget, very trashy. A lot of B-grade movies, basically. It never went into production. And someone at Sci-Fi, just for some reason, I guess, liked it enough to nominate it for the Blood List. So the Blood List, I don't think it still exists anymore, but it used to be this list of like the top, is it 100 or however many unproduced horror films or horror short films or shows or whatever. And that's how Ben Stiller like got to it, basically.
Wow.
He got introduced to it. He talked to the showrunner, and that's when they moved into producing, and then he ended up directing the show. And that's when it started to change. I think I'm sure when they pitched it to Apple, it got more clinical. It got less kind of horror-y.
Which I think is the right choice.
Yeah, I think so. And
I think it's the right choice.
I think even the showrunner admits in the interview, he says, I've got to be honest with you, that first pilot, I was just taking big swings because I didn't have anything going on and I didn't know what would land. I was just trying anything. And so
that's so good.
Some of the things that didn't make sense, I just put them in there anyway. And then, that kind of got changed by Ben Stiller or whatever else.
That's so good. So, it really is good. Yeah.
I think it's really cool. That's one of the things I guess we don't talk about with books because, I'm sure a lot of people kind of know this anyway, but the filmmaking, the show, like the way that people make shows is so collaborative.
Yeah, it's good to learn about how the industry works and how shows actually get made. I mean, when you're listening to LP, this is a writer or aspiring writer's show, so this is what you're going to get. But yeah, thanks for sharing. I loved it.
We can talk about why we picked this show, because I think you were the one who kind of decided on it, right?
Yeah, actually, you'd think for our first ever TV club, it would have been Derek, but it was actually me. But now I'm really struggling to remember why I picked it. Because it's so popular, that must have been why I heard it. And then I think I was just drawn to the office horror aspect and anything that makes fun of corporate life, because this year,
going through right now.
exactly. This year, I've started a new job at a fairly large corporation. And like, there's already some things that are going on that I've seen that made me go, oh. like, do you actually, like, to the people at my work, I'm like, do you actually believe what you're saying? Or are you just pretending like you believe it? I'm like, But thankfully, I'm in a department that's kind of sort of removed from some of the corporate bullshit, I like to call. So if I was in Lumen Industries, to like analogy with the show, I would probably be an unsevered employee. But anyway, I was like, I'm just really keen to see something that makes fun of corporate bullshit.
Yeah, and something with so much production behind it, right? Like that's ultimately the draw of like television, is like you get to it because it's it's Apple. Then you know that there's heaps of money poured into it, so it's not going to be cheap looking.
Yeah, true. I think the money aspect of it, well, I guess the casting, the set design, the lighting, cinematography, those are all very, very good. Yeah. Result of talent, yes, but also a result of money, 100%.
100%. So I watched Severance ages ago. When the first season came out, like as soon as it came out, I started watching it.
Oh.
And it's kind of funny because back then it actually didn't really leave an impact on me. When it came out, obviously you're not watching it immediately, like you watch it week by week.
Yeah.
That wasn't interesting to me, I guess, somehow. Like that process was too slow, and I don't think it was built that way, personally. Like it to me feels very built to binge.
Built to stream.
Built to stream, built to binge. And so when I watched it this time, I watched it all the way through season 1, episode 1 to 9. I think almost uninterrupted.
Like one day?
It was like however many hours it is, 9 hours straight. But I think that's like, you don't have to watch it all at once, but that's kind of the best way to consume it, I think.
I agree. I watched it definitely within the span of 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah. And it holds much better that way.
I think so. And to be fair, my biggest critique of the show is that it can get a bit slow in the first few episodes. And I generally like fast-paced stuff. And in the first few episodes, I feel like there were many like long, quiet shots where nothing's happening. And I'm like, sometimes I can get a little bit impatient with those. But I'm very glad I powered through. And I think this first season got better and better as it went on.
I think this show's pacing is impressive in that it continuously speeds up. You know, a lot of shows,
it speeds up,
where they're really fast in the beginning, then they slow down in the middle, and then they speed up again at the end. And that always feels really bad to me. Like I just never liked that feeling.
Yeah.
So this one where you're like really slow at the beginning, and then you slowly start to like increase the pace as the show more happens, and then it like reaches a climax. That was...
Yeah, I so agree. I love the way that it ramped up, and I think the slowness in the beginning is a deliberate choice. Just one that I kind of disagree with. Yeah, but because like I watch shows like BoJack Horseman and Rick and Morty, and those are like dense, packed.
Yeah, but those are entirely different shows. You know what I mean?
They are.
Those Rick and Morty and BoJack are designed in like the era. Even though they're streaming shows, they're designed in 3-act structures per episode. Every episode is 30 minutes. They're half-hour comedy shows. Like,
yeah, or even 25 minutes. I think this is a good place to talk about the like visual design of the show. I mean, I said that the office environment is obviously very sterile, robotic, clinical, but then I love that the outside world is also cold and colorless and gray, because the show, I don't know which city it's set in, but it's a very snowy city. So half the show, they're outies. They just live in this frigid environment covered with snow, and they live in these houses that don't have any bright colors, and even the lighting is gray sometimes.
Yeah. And
I actually love that, because it makes the rebellion towards Severance not so obvious. I feel like if it was designed in a way such that the outies worlds are like so obviously vibrant, full of life, and then the innies worlds are like so robotic, it would be like really obvious to be like, that's taking away our humanity, and that's bad. But because they are like more or less similar and both kind of lifeless, it actually makes the setting a bit more complex. Yeah. It really commits to a sci-fi concept, in this case Severance, and then it doesn't make it so obvious in the beginning that which side is bad, and then you fully understand why these characters choose to undergo this procedure. They aren't forced, by the way, at all. Like, they choose to undergo this procedure, and the reason their innies are at work every day is because their outies chose to get up and go to work that day. And so it's like complex and ambiguous right from the beginning, and it's just not on the nose.
You can really see as well that the key thing to the, like, even though there's a mystery box and everything, they're really dedicated to their core concept of the work, the innie versus the outie.
Mystery box?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, because
mystery plot.
Mystery box. You could go. Well,
is that a term?
Yeah, so like I should, before I make a fool of myself, I should probably like make sure that the definition I've got of like.
Okay, I think. Do you mean like the mystery, the plot that keeps things moving?
No. So mystery box is a type of show basically, and it's like Lost, or where the characters are figuring out what's happening, and like the plot unravels as you kind of figure out what's going on.
Then it is.
Where are the characters who, even though it never abandons the core concept to chase the mystery, I feel like that could have easily happened. If you're, sometimes people, I feel like some shows, they have a core concept. The core concept is interesting, but they don't believe in the core concept enough. Yeah. And so they chase something else.
Yeah.
And then it ruins the show because you're like, well, what's the point of all of this?
To be honest, I think Wednesday was a little bit like that. Like, I think I'm talking about the Tim Burton massive show, Wednesday. I love that show. I really enjoyed it, but I feel like the whole Wednesday angsty emo teenager thing was just an aesthetic. It wasn't something that the show really committed to. It ended up just being like a standard like mystery kind of plot. Whereas when watching Severance, like every minute you can feel the way that they are committed to the core concept, and they've invented language around it, like innie and outie, and very impressive, and very good.
So we haven't watched. So for clarity later on. We're only looking at season 1.
Yeah, only at season 1. Yeah.
Back to what you were saying about the directing and like the visuals.
Oh yeah.
So like this is just something that I've noticed because I've watched a couple of Apple TV shows now. The way they direct and their like visual language is really
distinctive, different.
I think it's distinctive. I don't think
it's
not necessarily good or bad. It's really, really space age. There's a lot of like, it feels very plasticky and very like artificial, and in some shows I actually some things that they do, I think it doesn't serve them.
Wow. Well, for Severance it definitely does serve them.
Severance it works really well.
Works perfectly. Wow. I didn't realize. See, like I'm more of an industry noob because I thought like Apple TV would just give them the money and let them run away with it, but apparently not.
I'm not an expert, so I don't really know. But if you watch the shows that, for example, if you're familiar with Netflix originals, they have a certain look and they have a certain storyline, like, because streaming giants are trying to build out their brands with their original content. So I think that's what you want to look at, what their original content looks like. Amazon Prime also has that sort of thing. If you watch Wheel of Time, if you watch like their shows.
Wow. Yeah, you're right.
I guess long story short, like I think it really works well for Severance, where it doesn't work as well for other shows.
I imagine not. It's very specific.
Yeah, and all of Apple's shows kind of look like this. Like, I don't like it, really.
Wow. You see, this is where like my naivete about the side who has the money and the side who makes the art, like they're separate, is totally false. Like there's going to be a degree of influence. Okay, next let's talk about who we would recommend this show to, and then we'll close off the spoiler-free section and jump into the spoiler section. So who do you recommend it to?
I think a lot of people would enjoy this. I think it's got like a really
I'm
broad
so
appeal.
I'm so jealous of TV. It's just so wide appeal. And you're right, everyone can watch it. If you have a strong grasp of the English language, or if the show is available in your language, then you can watch it.
Yeah, and I think it really is good that way. You would think basically that people who do office jobs and feel a certain way about working in the office would watch the show and then love it. And a lot of people do, to be fair, because you see yourself reflected. You're like, my job is bullshit. You're watching the show. You're like, may as well be macro data refinery.
That's the department that the characters work in.
But there are also plenty of people who watch, who live that life and go, I don't want to see any more of this. My time off is to escape from work. I don't want to think about it. And Jeremy is one of those people. So Jeremy, friend of LP, the show, our friend, he just has no interest in watching it.
I was literally about to say the same thing. I caught up with him the other day, do you know? I was like, we're going to do a Licensed Poetics TV club for the first time, and we're going to watch Severance. And I was like, are you going to watch it? And he said exactly what you just said. He's like, oh, I feel like I don't want to do it. And then literally while we caught up, he was in a suit, and he was about to do like a super corporate speech. And he was like, I feel like, I mean, I get that though. So if you are struggling with corporate life, and if you are maybe on the brink of the decision, maybe it might cloud your head a little. But if you're interested in reflecting on your own life,
yeah.
And but like there are two types of people, right? One type is that when they don't like something, they want to see it made fun of. The other type is when they don't like something, they just prefer not to think about it.
Yeah. But yeah, and I've got other people I know who actually work in real jobs where their real jobs impact real people. They don't have a macro data refinery type.
What sort of jobs are those?
You could be like a doctor.
Doctor.
Anyway, the idea of like you work with real people, right? You talk to a client, whatever, and they watch it and they go, "That's really funny," or "That's really interesting," and they just love the mystery part of it. And they're like, wow, this is a world that I kind of don't know about.
What?
And then they might be sitting on the couch next to one of these people who lives that every day, and they're like, whoa, and the guy next to them is just like...
Too bad this is not a video podcast. The listener has no idea what you just did.
Basically, I folded my arms and like stared as if I was...
Derek did his best acting.
Yeah, no, my acting is pretty amazing.
Listeners, you have to start lobbying us to turn into a video podcast. I will be persuaded for a certain amount of money. And also I will recommend this show to people who are looking for a good thriller. I mean, I watched it with my partner, and by the end, he was so stressed about it. He was like, oh my God, the mission that these people are on, no spoilers, like they're so close, but there's so many obstacles in their way. Like, are they gonna get there? Is their secret gonna be exposed? Like, he was so stressed out about it, which I think is adorable. But if you're looking for that thriller in like the true sense of the word, I think you'll find it here. And also, if you're just looking for some really relatable corporate moments, I think this is also in the first episode where our main character, Mark, he cries in the car before he goes into the office. And I was like, how relatable is that? Like, how many people are going to watch that and go, oh, I also have the urge to cry in my car before I go to work every day. I love that. That's one of the like top relatable moments for a corporate worker. Yeah. And also things like when your work bestie suddenly disappears without a trace. That is such classic like work relationship, because like you see these people every day, you're so intimate and you trust them, but then due to like a corporate related decision, either they quit or they get fired or whatever, they just disappear from your life entirely, which is a very, very special way to end a human relationship that is only possible in corporate environments. Like if it's like in real life, say if you stop seeing someone because they stopped attending church or something, like you will still hear about them through like your network and stuff. But then for work, especially for people who like to keep work and personal life separate, they will literally just disappear without a trace. I think, yeah, that was a very good moment.
Them in the wild one day.
Yeah, well, that's the mystery part of it.
Yeah.
In real life, a lot of times you just don't see them.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, even sometimes in real life, you do actually see them again. Like,
and that's weird when that happens.
And it's weird when it happens. I think it's just like, the classic satire thing.
Yeah.
It's all these real moments just heightened with the increase the stakes of real moments.
Oh, I love that.
As a satire writer,
love that. That is the literal thing. I loved how you said it as well. Real moments, but then create a heightened or absurd reasoning behind it. And then
you just elevate the stakes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Well, I mean, you know what's funny? Like you were the one who explained that to me about satire. Like,
what?
Do you remember ages ago I asked you like how you write satire? And you
no.
were like, oh, okay. So ages ago, for people who weren't there, which was everyone because it was just us hanging out, and I asked you, I was like, oh, how do you like write satire? Because I don't understand satire. Like I appreciate it, I enjoy it, but I don't know how to start writing it because that's not like a natural thing to me. And so I asked you, and you were like, oh, well, what you do is you start with a situation like you notice something like, oh, people really love coffee. And then you go, well, that's true. So what if you make it, you create an additional obstacle to it? So like, what if the coffee was like $500 per coffee? And then you keep going and you go, well, what if the government would literally put you on a list if you, something like that. I can't remember.
Oh my God. I think it was. I think I said the coffee example.
Yeah.
I remember the $500 thing. Yeah. Oh my God. You're right. I said that. That. And now is it on LP?
It was a personal conversation we had.
Listeners, we actually do have those.
So, our outies, I guess.
Yeah.
Our outies are talking about it.
Wow. See, past me is so smart. And yeah, well, this show uses this technique. Like that is how satire works.
Yeah, it's a really great way to kind of summarize satire. I'd never thought of it before like that way. I mean, obviously, you kind of know what it is, but I'd like never heard it distilled.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So I guess that's it for the spoiler-free section. So if you haven't watched it yet, you still want to watch it, catch up to season 2, go ahead and just pause this
and come back.
But at this point, it doesn't really matter. Like, we've got the numbers we want if you listen up to this point.
Oh, you're just numbers to us. We're gonna do the XYZ question next in the spoiler section, and if we have time, we're gonna read some IMDB reviews of the show. Now let's do the XYZ question. This is the first time we're applying it to a TV show rather than a book. So basically, the top 3 most XYZ things about the show are, and you just swap out XYZ for a word or a phrase or a concept, and it's a very flexible question. It can be anything. It can be super abstract.
Yeah.
It can be
because I'm like,
it's only an excuse to have you list 3 things so that it's easier to follow. I'll go first. I just have a bunch of things, and I think the only thing that ties them together is just clever. I would just say this show is very clever. And then the 3 clever things about it. Okay, the first thing, I have to chuck this in. The religious satire part. Oh God, I loved it. It was such a pleasant surprise because I thought it was just going to be corporate satire. But then as you watch into maybe starting from episode 2, whenever the break room part was, the religious elements become really obvious. And I freaking love that because I think religion is something that's very interesting and worth discussing. And I love that the show is able to make the connection between, between corporate life and religion. So in the show, whenever an employee breaks the rule, like tries to escape, for example, they will be taken into the break room where they basically are forced to read a confession, right? Like they're hooked up to this, I think, lie detector machine thing. And then they have to read a very religious sounding paragraph that's like I'm responsible for my sins and may I atone for them or something like that. And then you have to say it until the lie detector says that you're not lying. And so when the really rebellious new coworker, Helly R, she got into trouble for trying to escape. And she was in the break room for like 11 hours or something and just repeating the same lines over and over again until she meant it. So I think that's clearly pointing to religion, the way religion is organized. And then there's also the goats. What do you think of the goats? Really?
Goats. I have like a very like specific thing. I don't love mystery boxes. To me, I like unsolved endings and I like things that don't actually make sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they pay it off, it'll be really annoying to me. I like the surrealness of it. Like the big thing, if you're talking about corporate satire, I think, and this kind of ties into the religious aspect of it. Religion is really just a way of making sense of everything.
Yeah.
Right? And the corporate environment is one where you want people, the workers, to believe that there is a purpose and everything is created in a way that has a purpose.
There's literally no difference when you dig into it between like a company's mission and a religion's literal mission.
Because it's trying to make sense out of things to cover up the bits of the world that don't make sense. Same way that it covers up the bits of the company that don't make sense.
Yeah, and also create like a meaning.
Yeah, where there's like often no meaning. Like I think the example would be like there are some jobs that like in certain companies, I'm pretty sure they don't need to exist. But you come up with a justification over time. Yeah. People come up with justifications for those jobs to exist. And then you tell a story about what that
and then you have to believe the story.
You believe the story.
Oh, God.
And so, I mean, if I would be really disappointed if everything that was weird about Lumen was explained away by some intentional plan. Because to me, that's like not accurate to life or to corporations or to anything. Like some things actually are just nonsense. And I think if you take that away and you give the audience, I think what all audience kind of usually wants, which is clear answers.
Everything's tie-in. Yeah.
I think that's really undermining the satirical part of corporations. That's my personal belief. But,
that is a great point, and I think I'm persuaded by it. I was going to say, while I love the goat thing, and I love that it's a literal religious motif presented in a corporate environment, I was a little bit confused by it. Maybe because of the long shots, like if it was shorter, maybe I would have just like looked past it. And sometimes they are able to like tie it in quite neatly. Like, do you remember the scene where, what was his name? Irving was standing there and looking at the thick compliance books. Yeah. The thick compliance books are literally religious texts, printed in the same kind of paper and the same weight.
My favorite thing was when they get to find out about the other departments. So initially, the departments are all very separate, and they're each told these stories about the other departments. The company has created a situation where the departments don't talk to each other. So on the very basic metaphorical level, I guess that's probably my XYZ. It was like, this is very layered and not in a pretentious, you're trying too hard sort of way. All the layers work on each of the levels. Like the literal situation, the work situation is, if you've ever worked in a big corporation,
you don't talk to the department. Yeah.
The departments don't talk to each other and there's confusion and all this stuff. In terms of the story, the element of it that what happens is the reason for all of this is that Lumen in this case has like intentionally done that. To make sure that people don't find out what everyone else is doing. Yeah,
so they don't form camaraderie and share information.
Which is the unionization thing.
Yeah. Wait, what's the third level? I'm waiting.
And then you have how corporations, how governments, how organizations generally instill fear and they disseminate that fear and they breed it. So like by creating, so you remember the scene where they have every place has different versions of the same painting. And that painting is like like of one department attacking another department.
Oh yeah.
And then
Like
they switch the tag
Yeah.
so that in each department, every department thinks that the other departments are coming to get them.
yes,
So they constantly
wow.
mistrust them all.
Wow. I'll be honest, I think I missed the painting thing. I didn't notice that they were swapped, but it would make sense that they are. Wow, this is like masterful manipulation, like fractionalism, right? Make sure they turn against each other as opposed to uniting against you. Oh, love it.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it as well is that every time you're revealed a villain. So at first it's like Milchik. Right? He's there. I guess he's the manager, or he's there like middle management.
Yeah, middle management. Yeah.
Mark reports to him, and then he reports to the floor manager, which is
Patricia Arquette.
yeah. Well, what's the character's name? Harmony Cobell.
Cobell.
And
Yeah.
Selvig is the name.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because every time they reveal a villain, they reveal him, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's weird," and then they reveal, and then it turns out he doesn't know what is going on. And they reveal another level of like villain. And
it turns out she also doesn't know what's going on.
And then she doesn't know what's going on. And so it continues to like escalate. And then you get the sense, and then there's a final big climax reveal about who...
The board.
Well, the board, but then also... Get to the ending.
Egan.
It turns out that Ellie is the innie of...
Helena Egan. Helena Egan.
Who is like the daughter of one of the founders of the company.
Of Lumen Industries.
Oh yeah, Lumen Industries. And then, so she realizes that basically like, oh my, that's the final thing where it's like, oh my God, this goes all the way to the top. You know,
I do love that, yes. And I love how the board like nips Harmony Cobell like a little ant. I loved that. And I loved the like curly haired lady with the headset that talks to the board, and
Natalie.
Yeah.
She's like, the board has left the call.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really funny. Okay. There was something else. Yes, there's a great line that's also clear religious undertones. That's like, everyone in the world, they will all be Kier's children, and everyone in the world should get Severance. Kier is Kier Egan, the founder of Lumen Industries. And then it's very much like a religion or a company with a mission, an origin story. They want everyone in the world to believe in that story. And that gives them so much power. But then the way they phrase it is like, all the world, there will be Kier's children. But then if you swap out Kier for God or for Chairman Mao or for literally whatever big daddy that your mission believes in.
Whatever big daddy.
It literally is that way. I love the way Harmony Cobell is set up too. I think she's not just professionally, she's one of those women that's extremely personally dedicated to the institution. And I think the way she is that way is because that gives her a lot of power, right? So that even after she's been fired, she's still dedicated to the mission.
It's just really, it's pretty masterful in that way. I actually think it's like really well executed. It's probably like my like final summary of it.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up was the self-help book. Okay, I think it's a very specific angle that I'm looking at this, but I think it shows that what kind of book really connects with a certain kind of really institutionalized people. I think, for me, I don't read self-help books. I find it impossible to connect with them. But if I try to remember when I was more institutionalized, or if I try to imagine if I was more, when I say institutionalized, I mean like innies, like their life has literally nothing else except their religion, their institution, or their corporate jobs. To those kind of people, self-help literature is actually really helpful.
Because it like helps them like be empowered in themselves and like
exactly. So like when you Mark's outie does not like the book at all. He rolls his eyes at the rudimentary advice that the book can offer, like all self-help books. But then his innie is like, everything around me is telling me to conform, to follow the rules, to obey Kier, obey the company. But then this book tells me that I am here, that I own my own time. The company doesn't own my time. I own my own time. Like, I don't know. I think that's really, really clever. And I'm sure it's intentional that, yeah, self-help books are helpful to a certain kind of people. The third thing about why the show is clever is that I think it's written for TV as a medium because it's set up in a way that it brings out amazing performances out of these actors. And these main characters, they didn't sign up to play one role. They signed up to play two roles. And they also have to capture the moment of transition too. So it's asking quite masterful acting from the cast. And I think that's a great thing. And that is an example of writing exploring the potential of the medium really well. Yeah. Like when it's a novel, you don't have that. You have other things, but here, like, I feel like it's written specifically to bring out excellent performance out of people.
Yeah. It's really solid.
Yeah, solid. Yeah.
If we were writers and we were working on the show, what would we have changed about it?
Because it's so easy for us to sit here and fantasize.
Yeah, because we love fantasizing more than we love writing.
100%.
I mean, everyone does.
I've already said this before, but the pacing, although maybe that's more of a director thing, but I would tighten up the pacing a little bit in the first few episodes. The only other thing is I think Bert and Irving's relationship, the way they developed, like basically they're their like office husband, right? Like a work husband, the work wife, work husband thing. I wish they was developed a bit more before Bert left. Slower and longer and more. I just wanted to see their relationship a bit more before Bert disappeared. Yeah. Honestly, that's the only two things I can think of. Otherwise, it's pretty masterful writing, I have to admit.
I think that's kind of a necessary sacrifice, probably.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that suffers with these TV, like these streaming shows, is because they're more movies than they are shows almost. And the show part of it, you have like a TV show, the way that you did in the oldie days, right? Character relationships, like in The Office, like the famous ones, Jim and Pam from The Office. You have like over years, yes, to like develop it, but not just over years, but like over episodes. So episodes, each of which is a story, like shows the characters change and get closer to one another, and you can reflect the actors' interactions with each other in the script. And I mean, that's the natural progression of television. For these like sorts of streaming shows, you can't really do that because you need to pace out a plot as well.
Yeah.
So characters can't spend time in bottle episodes. There's no like wedding episodes. There's no where you can build those little things that kind of make the relationship feel special. And
can you imagine Severance having a... Oh yeah. Right, you're right. Yeah.
But it's history, so that's kind of what happens.
I love this lens that you're providing. This is a very, very professional podcast. What about you? What would you have changed about it?
I don't think I would. It's kind of weird. My thing would be more, I don't want certain things to change, but I know that they will. Like, I'm sure.
What does that mean? In the future seasons, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
that maybe I'm kind of projecting. Like, I think certain things will change about the show. Like, its pacing is probably going to speed up.
Okay.
Because the pace that the show goes at, right, is very slow to very fast. And I really liked that sort of build up to.
Okay,
the climax of the actual show is actually the climax of the events. Like, it is the biggest possible thing that could happen. Right? It happens at the very end of the episode where the characters go from like being totally shut in a box, the innies, and then at the end they like see the outside and they're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do with this information. even the climax usually happens in the penultimate episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it
yeah.
actually happens at the very end.
Mm.
So that's really cool. But I can't imagine that continue. How do you solve that in season 2, for example? How do you then start back, repilot, and then start that exact same process again? You start really slow and then get really fast at the end.
It's hard. Like the audience already has too much information now.
And that's what
you got to
saying.
keep up the fast pacing
only
now.
Speed up.
Yeah.
And once new characters get involved, and stuff like that. And it'll become increasingly less about atmosphere and more about plot points. I'm sure it will start to happen, and I'm not excited for it. That's my prediction.
Oh my god!
Who knows?
How the frick do you do pacing when you write? It's impossible. It's actually impossible. I don't know how to pace writing. I literally have no idea how to do it.
You're telling me. I mean,
the other thing that I wanted to say, I think what they could have done, and I'm glad they didn't with Severance, is that they could have made it very low-level, saccharine, obvious satire, but instead they build up the history of Lumen Industries. They're like, we started in the 18th century or whatever, and then it just immediately makes the ambition of the show much bigger, and I just freaking love that. I love when people have ambition for their shows or their stories and then they really commit to it. I really wish I can do it, Derek. I really wish I could do it. You know what? I think I have the ambition. I just don't know how to execute.
I think structurally, the show, it's like satire in its structure. It's satire in the bones of the show. Sometimes shows are just about satire, but they're actually at their core a comedy. Or
that's so true. That's so true. They're using satire as an aesthetic, not at this corner. Cool. Should we read the IMDb reviews now?
Yeah.
Let's see some funny ones. I can't wait to see what 1-star reviews would be about. What can you possibly say about this show? Hey, some 1-star reviews on IMDb. IMDb.com is different to Goodreads because Goodreads is 5-star scale. IMDb is 10-star scale. So here we have this 1 star out of 10. Pretty much misses on all counts. It's hard to tell what the point of it all is. The plot never builds or goes anywhere. Even the title itself is not clearly or consistently conveyed.
The title is Severance.
I said, not all characters appear to be taking part of the so-called severance.
That's a stupid. Who wrote that?
I agree. That is actually kind of dumb.
That's ridiculous.
Oh my god. The tech displayed is super clunky, which is humorous at first, but wears very thin after the first episode. Oh wow. The complaint is that the computers aren't fancy enough, as if that's not the entire point. Oh my god. It seems that the ideal audience for Severance might be someone who has not read a book or seen a movie or show more than a couple of years old. I don't understand what that means.
I think they just mean it's a shallow show, I think. Look, there is some... I don't agree with these reviews, but I definitely did feel the first time I was bored. I mean, that was the reality of it. I was not... I don't know what changed, but I really wasn't that interested the first time I watched it.
Okay, to see a similar subject expertly done, watch The Truman Show.
No. I have a particular dislike for The Truman Show person.
Oh, really? I have seen that movie, actually.
Is up there with Pleasantville and stuff for me. It's too on the nose. It's for kids. Truman Show is for kids.
Yes, some satire can be so on the nose that it feels like it's for kids. Severance is not one of those. Okay, another 1-star review. I can't recall the last time a show angered me this badly. I hated almost every character. I would think to myself, why can't they just grow a pair and just murder the management? Someone has clearly never worked in an office job before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It's funny because you can watch the show, and I guess I don't know. Did you feel like you identified with like Helly R, or like did you identify with one of the characters?
Oh my god, good question, Derek. I was saying, I think Haley R is the role that I play in workplaces.
Oh, you're also malcontent. You're also like
Malcontent, and also I'm just the one young woman that's more full of life than everyone else. Like,
that's such a good description.
Tell me that's not exactly what Haley R is. Her red hair, obviously such an intentional choice. And the fact that, you know, she has just more of her life inside of her because she's young, she hasn't worked there for as long. She's different because she's a woman. And I think a lot of workplaces, you will find that one young woman who is a bit more full of life. And unfortunately, I am that young woman most of the time. Actually,
did you ever think about how much money they get paid? What would your number be? For you to be severed, to like be subject to that, to what's your number?
Honestly, it's irrelevant because I feel like I'm already look, I have that like whole thing about I want to separate my personal life from my
you pay them. You would pay them.
No. No,
please, Big Daddy, come save me.
I think watching Severance has made me reflect. Like the reason I want to do that is actually the opposite, because I cannot help but bring my full self to work, and that has led me to disadvantage and harm in the past. So I'd rather have a guideline for me to be a bit more reserved and have things for myself, because otherwise, like, I don't know, I like to be fully present. Like being separate actually hurts more. Do you know what I mean?
Personal. I love this.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I have a bit of a different, like, a personal experience with it, but yeah, I think I kind of get that.
So I would pay them to get.
You're like paying Lumen. You're like, please. I probably do kind of bring too much of myself to work. That combined with being a malcontent.
Oh my god. Don't you see? If I bring my full self to work, I will be a full malcontent. Like no one can ever make me do anything.
I'm the worst subordinate. You couldn't think of a worse person.
Oh, wow. So your manager would pay money to get you severed.
I think so. I'm not sure my innie would be any more compliant than my outie.
Oh, so your innie would still be the Helly R of the
my
office.
My innie would still be a dickhead. I'm certain of it. Like, I think it's core to my personality.
Wow. Okay, well, this one, oh my god. To me, it's a masterpiece. If you think about it in a deeper sense, this is a 10 out of 10 review. The Severance Corporation is a metaphor for how trapped workers are in their job. That's my theory.
Don't laugh at someone who's
so like, endearing.
Oh man,
that's so endearing.
You're so patronizing.
I know.
Like, I'm you sweet stupid person.
I'm being a dickhead, but like I think that's so cute. But hey, that's a 10 out of 10 review.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Now's a good time to wrap up today's episode. If you'd like to support Licensed Poetics, head to buymeacoffee.com/licensed-poetics. We do have supporters, by the way.
I wasn't going to say anything.
So I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the listeners.
Okay. You were talking to the listeners that are there.
They are there. Don't disrespect them. We firmly believe in your existence, listeners.
We definitely do. As peers, children, I know. Sure you're all out there.
Maybe one day LP will become an institution. And cool. I want to be the big daddy, Derek.
You can be the daddy. That's fine with me.
Oh my god. Like maybe the only level to like break free of institution is to build your own institution and have people like conform to me. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Fung-Ling.
I'm Derek.